There were times I was lost, dark had fear, couldn't see through the rain. In the end it was clear, hit the fan. I was more than one man who was there to lend a hand. Together we'd stand, always at my back, my guardian soldier. Team pulled together, united we conquer. Blessed is he who in the name of charity carry me when I'm weak straight through the valley of darkness. Pitch blackness, the heartless, regardless, fear couldn't part us. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. We ride, 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 ride. I am my brother's keeper. Keep on holding strong. United we stand, divided we fall. Together we belong. I am my brother's keeper. Keep on holding strong. United we stand, divided we fall. Together we belong. I am my brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper.
Hey there, Moto fans. This is episode 24 of the Mental for Moto podcast. I'm your host, Pete Wolf. Tonight we have a new show format for you guys, which we have called Going Off Track. Basically, the premise of the show is that I make a hot take and then hand over to my guests to get their opinions. The idea is that we can use this as a platform to discuss fun, controversial, and even innovative topics. And I just want to say it from the start, before you're 5 beers deep and decide to take to the comments section on Instagram to call me names and tell me that I'm out to lunch, my hot take may or may not reflect my actual opinion. It's just about inciting a bit of discussion and having a bit of a laugh. While we may not be here to solve all the world's problems, maybe, just maybe, we can come up with some ideas that get people talking and possibly even result in some positive changes in the sport. Now, joining me in the Moto Asylum for this episode, I have a star-studded lineup that is broadly representative of the moto community. The first of my three guests is a former Sherco team manager and longtime moto media mogul. Rumour has it that he's been a moto journo for that long that his first article was engraved on a clay tablet. Welcome back to the studio, Stephen Tuff. What's been happening?
Wolfie, thank you. When you said star-studded, I'm not sure who the stars or who the studs are, but yeah, thanks for the invite.
Plus Tuffy.
Yeah, plus me. No, well, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. My second guest is a sales executive with Peter Stevens Motorcycles in Dandenong and a Yamaha brand ambassador. He's known to have the gift of the gab, and those skills are probably a big reason why we are currently seeing so many new blue bikes at the local motocross tracks. Dean Mosig, thanks for joining us.
I'm well, thanks, man. Yeah, thanks for having me back.
How's things going at Peter Stevens?
It's always good.
Good to hear. And finally, back again for the second time in as many weeks is the guy that often travels by the name of Isaac. Current Pro MX rider in the MX2 class. He's the privateer hero apprentice and a case lawyer to the stars. What's up, Zane Mackintosh?
Yeah, not much. Just enjoying being back in the booth, chatting a bit of stuff. So yeah, no, it's good.
Are you back on the bike yet?
Not quite, but we'll be probably by the time this comes out. So yeah, keen.
What are you saying about my editing and release time frame?
Nothing, mate, nothing.
All right, the first talking point for tonight's show is a bit of a lighthearted one, just to get the ball rolling. It's a question that spurned countless debates, both on and off social media all across the world. Should Vince Friese be permanently banned from motocross and supercross? Now, your point of view on this could be different depending on if you look at this as a rider or a fan. But I know from chatting to riders at last year's supercross that there are many who would prefer just to see Vince give up and maybe take up lawn bowls. Behind the scenes, there's very little love for the guy. Now, I'll admit that Vince does bring a bit of excitement and attention to the sport now and then, but I'd argue that it's usually not for the right reasons. I don't think that anyone would deny that his tactics are often questionable, and he somehow always seems to end up causing or being involved in controversy. An example of that would be what happened at Arlington last weekend when Jet was trying to get past Cooper for the lead and just happened to run into the back of Vince in the whoops. If any rider's going to get in the way, it's going to be Vince. Now, even when he's not at the pointy end, his riding frequently has championship-altering implications, not to mention he puts other riders at risk of suffering massive injuries. Yet somehow he seems to avoid significant penalties from the sanctioning bodies, and more surprising, it blows my tiny mind how someone hasn't gone Tonya Harding on him yet. Without Vince, would the sport lose fans? I don't think so. Are there any riders that would miss him? Probably not. And do his tactics have the potential to cause real harm? Most definitely. So I'm going to say that Vince Friese should be permanently banned from motocross and supercross. What are your thoughts, Tuffy?
Mate, it's hard for me to believe that this guy would lay in bed and go, all right, today I'm going to just go out and just slam some guy off a berm and just ruin stuff. Like I can't get my head around that way of thinking.
Yep.
So I've only met him once. It was very brief. He seemed normal, although he does have crazy eyes. I think he's probably just one of those riders that suffers from white line fever. He just gets out there and loses his brain, and it's just that kill or be killed mentality, I believe. Yeah, he's entertaining. There's no doubt. I've tuned in to watch what he's doing, and then, you know, I've definitely enjoyed some of the Instagram content around that guy. I certainly wouldn't want to be on the outside of him in a turn. So, yeah, mate, do you remember Mick Cook?
No.
Sick Mick from Queensland. Like, he was well respected for you stay out of his way, and he'll settle it in the pits later as well if you want to. Maybe someone actually does need to say, hey, Vincey boy, let's get it on. And I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't want to race a guy for safety reasons. Does he need to be banned? Nah, I don't think so.
So one thing that a lot of the riders were saying last year that have actually had a crack at him over the course of their career is saying that it's like hitting a concrete block. Like, he's really, really hard to move.
Okay.
So I think that's one of the reasons why no one's really taken big repercussions on the track.
Yeah. But I am, all that aside, I am surprised that the governing bodies haven't pushed back harder on him and done something.
What about you, Vince? Vince.
Hey, Vince.
Zano.
Oh, that's right. I'll let that one slide, mate. On the Vince being hard to move, I spoke to Wilsey after he gave him a good crack at Melbourne, and he reckons that's one of the best slams he's ever laid on anyone, and he just wasn't enough. And, you know, a couple turns later, Vince hit him a lot harder than he thought it was going to be there. So, yeah, no, from a rider's point of view, it's being out there, you'd definitely Supercross. Supercross is hard, let alone there's someone chopping left or right, kind of oblivious to what's going on around him. But, I mean, from a fan, like, I reckon he should have free entry. Like, you know what I mean? Think how much chaos and how much excitement he's added to the championships and things like that. You know, so, you know, it's a double-edged sword. Honestly, as a rider, I'd probably come in with bent bars and, you know, bent fork, but as a fan, he's good for the sport. You know, Bam Bam's got a name, Bam Bam, for a reason. You know, he was the same, but I think he's respected from others. But I think definitely some of his moves are a bit reckless.
Dino, what about you, mate?
I'm on the fence, man. I personally don't like dirty riding, man. If you can't run the pace to beat the front, don't resort to that. Yes, I look at it from a marketing perspective. Yes, he does bring entertainment value to the sport. And I know people that perhaps are relatively newcomers to the sport and seeing that stuff live, it's entertaining. They're on the edge of their seat. I get that. As a racer, would I like racing him? Absolutely not. Man, nah. So I think what the best course of action I think would be, you know, you think, okay, he rides for Tony Alessi and his team, and Tony is his own topic in itself, right? In terms of how passionate he is and how bad he wants to succeed. But I just think perhaps if he was reprimanded harder for his actions, I wouldn't say as far as banning him from the sport. You know, the dude's got to make a living.
Yep.
Perhaps if he got bigger repercussions for his actions as a team directive, they would need him to settle down. You know, go, hey, dude, you can't just go and blow someone off the berm. You know, you might get a 2-race ban. There goes our championship hopes. Would Tony Alessi really want to keep throwing championships down the drain? I don't think so.
Yeah,
like Zane said, it is a double-edged sword because there is an entertainment value, and obviously, you know, the more people that are tuning in and watching the sport and engaging and getting excited, you know, that goes back to growth. But I feel for the other riders, man. I would hate riding out there with someone like that.
Yeah, and look, like I sort of said, I don't think losing him would necessarily lose fans, but you just sort of touched on something. His antics may bring new fans to the sport when they see that, especially when they see it on the media. In response to your topic, Zane, about Bam Bam, the only difference I see in their riding is that if Barsha gets past clean, I think 9 times out of 10, he passes back clean. It's only when someone gets too close to him, then they've opened the gates of hell.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know what you're saying there, and a few of the riders have moments where they start on Barsha. He shows them ways. He's got the nickname Bam Bam, but look, I enjoy a good block pass show every now and then. Supercross, it's probably not the place for it.
Yeah,
but in an outdoors and things like that, where there's not as much risk of clipping a guy off an up ramp for a triple in, I reckon it's fair game. But in the indoors, he's probably playing a bit of a rough subject.
And I just want to add to that, Zane, because you've just opened up the door for something. So there's the block pass, there's a clean pass, there's running someone wide, and then there's cross jumping, and then there's brake checking, and there are things that aren't on.
Yep.
And Vince is notorious. He's a cross jumper. He's a brake checker, and that's where I think he takes it too far. Yep, you can run someone high on the berm, you can stand someone up. Yep, play on, all good. You cross someone on the face of a jump or a triple, and they get caught up in the air. It's not only that it could cause a crash; you could end someone's career, dude.
That's a great point, and I think there'll be hell to pay when someone is seriously injured as a result of Vince's actions.
Yeah,
and that'll change the game, and then there'll be a lot of finger pointing and saying, "Why wasn't something done sooner?"
Yeah,
I mean, pretty much the guy's on parole, or he should be, right, as a rider.
Yep.
So, in all seriousness, something needs to be done. Does he need to go? No, but something needs to be done.
Did you smoke a packet of cigarettes before?
Yeah, I think I did.
Winnie Reds.
I'm scared of Vince. See ya.
Yeah, I think one of the issues, because one of the questions I sort of came up with in my own head while I was preparing for this question was, why is it always Vince? And I think one of the issues with Vince that causes him always to get involved a lot of the time is that he's such a good starter as well. Like, his starts are so much better than his race speed. So he always ends up in the mix with much faster guys.
And even when he's a lapper, he's always in the mix as well. So
Yeah.
I think he also struggles with a bit of blue flag syndrome. Once he's, as much as he's fighting for his 10th place, you need to just pull aside, mate.
Get out of the way, yeah.
Or at least be aware of what's going on around you.
Yep, for sure. All right, so what do you think the consensus is? Keep him?
I think keep him. I'd love to see the governing bodies really hammer down on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see that and see how he responds.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, I don't think, people like Tony Alessi or Moto Concepts would be, if he was reprimanded the way that I believe he should be and he gets a 2-3 race ban, the chance of the team being competitive in a championship hunt are done. I think that they would not appreciate that.
Yep.
What's a fine to a millionaire? Let's face it, these guys all earn a lot of money. They get $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 fine. It's nothing.
So it might be a little bit of a different topic, but you just sort of triggered something that got me thinking. In Formula One, they often sanction the team. Do you think that is something that could help pull him into line a bit? Like, if the team got the penalty, as well as the rider, but if the team got the repercussions? No?
Personally, absolutely not.
Yep.
Nah, his championship, his season's fine.
Yep.
Team's got plenty of money.
You don't think?
I don't think so, no.
Yeah, you don't think Tony Alessi he'd actually care?
No, I think Tony Alessi would care more if he was on the sidelines, not racing.
Yeah, okay.
No,
Yeah.
I don't know Tony, but I think everybody has seen him get pretty heated over the years and how passionate he is, There's no hiding that. I think that would hurt him more than any sort of financial loss.
Yeah, yeah.
Not having his bike out on the track, sorry.
Fair enough. Dano, any final points before we close this one out?
We definitely got to keep him, but as not to kind of agree with everyone, but I reckon they should nearly just have him and Barsha, one-on-one before the main event at Vegas, just flat track, just go at each other, see who rides off. Nearly, bit of fun, but they got to do something to the kid because I got no idea.
I mean, at the end of the day, it really comes down to a lot whether you're looking at it as a high-level racing sport as well or an entertainment sport.
Yeah.
And that line is often blurred. I mean, if it was all about entertainment, you could just leave Vince on the sideline until the last 3 laps and then set him out 20 metres in front of the leaders.
10-pin bowling.
Yeah, that would be classic. I mean, how entertaining would that be to watch? But as a race, I think it's harder to justify keeping him in without actually doing something about it, because his actions do have implications. Well, that was the icebreaker, so a bit of fun. Now we're getting into something a little bit more serious. Will the emergence of electric motorcycles result in a dark age for moto? Now, this is something that I've thought about a lot over the last 12 or so months. And I'm going to say that if their introduction to the sport isn't handled correctly, that it's almost definitely going to end in a dark age for moto. Before I go too far, I need to say that I'm a big fan of e-bike technology and I think it has its place. However, we need to learn from history and reflect on some of the not very positive impacts that four-strokes had on the sport when they first came in as well. And that is why I believe very strongly that the addition of e-bikes to the racing scene in particular needs to be very calculated. Having mixed classes, whether at the local or professional level, that includes petrol and electric bikes, I think is a huge mistake. One of the issues that I see is that in a head-to-head battle with petrol bikes, that e-bikes, I think, will dominate, especially in time. Look at what happened when Trey Kennard rode the Honda e-bike in the Japanese championship. The guy's like 60 years old and he's been retired for half a century, and he got off the couch and got a whole shot in nearly every race. And had he not been involved in that racing incident with Jay Wilson that prevented him from continuing, probably would have resulted in him winning that round. All things being equal, I think a good rider will perform better on an e-bike, and should e-bikes dominate petrol-powered motorcycles on the racing scene, if you can't afford an e-bike, you'll be at a massive disadvantage. That type of dynamic could crush the local racing scene. Secondly, I've heard that there are already plans to open up some new e-bike only motocross tracks in Australia. While the thought of there being more places to ride sounds awesome, and it's great that e-bikes don't cause the same noise issues, how long is it going to be until the Karen that lives next to your local track straps on her eco-warrior costume and starts lobbying her local council to turn your track into an e-bike only track? So, will the emergence of electric motorcycles result in a dark age for motocross? I'm going to say that unless the governing bodies make it very clear, and I'd even say treat them as an entirely separate class of competition to petrol-powered motorcycles, that yes, the potential of that happening is very real. We'll start with you, Zano.
Well, as a newer kid to the block, I didn't actually get to witness the four strokes come into the scene. I was a bit young for that, so I've kind of just always grown up. You know, you grow up on your two strokes, and then your four strokes were just the go-to bike as soon as you hit 250. And so I've kind of never known anything different. I don't think the e-bikes are going to drown out the 250s, or the four strokes like you're saying they will. I definitely think they will be fast and they'll be competitive. But I think once they get the ruling right, I don't see why there would be a reason why we can't race them together. You know, I haven't actually had the pleasure of riding one, but a few people I've spoken to, you still got to be just as good as rider to ride either. You know, I've had people compare back to back, and they've been quicker on their four stroke. So I don't know. I think that it might take a while before they take over.
Dino.
Yeah, I think dark ages is probably a little bit of a dense way to describe it. I think we're at the beginning of something new, and I think for me to put those two together, I feel like you almost can't. They are so different.
Yeah.
I've spent quite a lot of time riding and testing and doing it on the Stark. The thing that I find will be a challenge is you can't hear them coming. Your spatial awareness as a rider, you don't know if they're behind you and things like that. I think that's going to have implications with racing. You know if a guy's coming right up behind you. You know, you imagine if you're about to get lapped by Dean Ferris, you're going to hear that bike screaming. You know, you get lapped by a dude on an e-bike, you don't know he's behind you. You could potentially cut him off. You know, we talk about blue flag antics and things like that. You know, 9 times out of 10, you'll hear the leader coming before you'll see a blue flag. You know, and if someone is hauling ass on their e-bike, man, and you're going about your race and you don't hear them coming, I think that is going to play a role.
Yep. And that's obviously not an issue if you've got a whole field of e-bikes.
And I think at the minute, you know, like we said, this is brand new, relatively brand new, and I would like to think in one day that they'll have their own category, their own class.
Yep.
For me, that would be desirable. I think a really good advocate for e-bikes, someone I respect a lot, is Josh Hill. And the way that he speaks about it, he openly says, do I ever want to see petrol engine bikes die? No. I want to see them till the end of time. Do I like electric motorcycles? Yes. I think it's a grey area, man. It's a hot topic. Yeah.
Tuffy.
Mate, like you said, it's really early days. We don't know. And the only way we will progress with them is to integrate them into what we already have. So I think it's inevitable that that's what we do. Generally speaking, especially Motorcycling Australia, are very reactionary.
Yep.
They're not so much proactive because we're a pretty small sport. So it's going to happen. We'll have e-bikes in with our petrol bikes to begin with. They are super exciting, these things. I had my first ride on one last weekend and I haven't stopped talking about it. They are pretty awesome. So there's this whole new thing that's going to happen, but it's such early days. There's so much we don't know about these machines. And for an average guy like myself and my mates, am I going to invest in one now? No, because I don't know how long this thing's going to last or what it's going to cost me in the long run. With a petrol bike, I've got a fairly good idea of the money I spend to the fun I get back out of it.
Yep.
So I think it's going to be a long road yet. But it's inevitable. It's going to happen. More manufacturers are going to bring these things out. There'll be a lot more numbers. Hopefully the prices will be more realistic and they'll be everywhere. I'm all for it. I can't wait to see it happen. But, I love a petrol engine. I love the smell of a two-stroke that runs caster. I would use that stuff as aftershave. So a petrol engine is always going to be special to me, but you can't deny these things are here. It's not the future. It is the now. Entry level, if you can use that word.
Yeah. See, I'd like to still see, even if it holds up their ability to race for a little while, I'd love to see them not be integrated at this early stage. And that's one of the things that got me thinking about the potential impact of this on the sport. So if I use the vet class as an example, like Dino, hopefully you can sort of back me up on this. Even in the vet class, there is a bunch of riders, let's say at a Gippy, there'll be 10 riders there that are super, super competitive.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So they all want to win. They want to be up that pointy end. Mm-hmm. 5 of them get e-bikes. Okay? And those e-bikes start being up the pointy end, and those other 5 guys find it hard to be right up the front there. And this is what I think the potential for e-bikes has. I think the technology is advanced on the petrol bikes. Assuming that that's somewhat accurate, what's going to keep those 5 guys that want to be competitive but say can't afford an e-bike or don't have the inclination to go out and spend a shit ton of money on an e-bike in the sport? And if you look at that at the local race scene, and you've got the most competitive guys being able to buy 1 or 2 e-bikes, because it is the technology of the future, it's going to keep developing. It's going to get even better than it is now. And then you've got a whole bunch of riders then that can't compete. And I would say at a local scene, because there's not so much riding on it, you're going to see a lot of numbers start to dwindle across a lot of classes. And that's one of the things that I see as a risk by having the classes integrated. Now, if they've got their own classes, the progression of e-bikes in racing is going to be a little bit slower because you've obviously got to wait until you've got enough bikes to make up a class. You can probably combat that by mixing different, seniors into a class. So seniors and vets might be mixed into the same class, and then, groups of juniors into the same classes. But then you get to see what they actually do, and it's a like-for-like competition, and you're not impacting the whole sport at the cost of trying to promote and support the minority technology that's coming in. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess like from a consumer perspective, would people not being able to afford them deter them from racing if they don't feel competitive? No, I don't think so.
You don't think so?
We can finance anything nowadays, man. You know what I mean? There's ways to skin a cat, but I honestly believe in comparison to a 450cc bike, I don't think the e-bikes are quite there, man. They're good. Don't get me wrong. They're good. And a lot of the professional guys, even in the States, are all saying similar things too. They're good. They've got a few things that they're working through. And I think we mentioned on the first time we spoke, for the first of something, they are amazing.
Yeah.
They really are. And this is the start of, what is inevitably next. Would I feel comfortable racing against an e-bike? I think that's probably what I envisioned when you asked that question about them being in the vet class. I don't know, man. Same thing. It's an experience thing.
Yep.
I'll tell you when I've done it, and I'll tell you how I felt. If I get my ass whooped by one, maybe we'll have a different chat. But it's still such a green thing at the minute that I think we're just gonna have to wait and see, man. Honestly.
To grab that question from you, throw another question back at you. Should we have a stock and a modded class? You know what I mean? Because there's a big difference between, even in the junior classes, some of those 85s, like those fast kids aren't on stock 85s. There's a big...
That's a good point.
Those things, there's a fair few horsepower and a lot of money in those suspension. So as much as motocross is a skill game, there's always going to be a money side to it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like I can get on even if they were better than a brand new 450, which they might not be yet, I'm still going to be 10 seconds a lap off Jed Beaton. I don't see it making so much of a difference where you're going to find only where everyone's going to jump ship. You know what I mean?
But I guess the access to some of that performance in a petrol bike isn't seen so much on the local scene. And that's one of the areas that I worry will be impacted when the electric bikes really come in. So what you're saying is like super relevant. Like you look at guys like Seth Thomas and Cooper Ford, like what they're running in their 85 is not going to be what the guy that's running 5th or 10th is running in their 85. Like there's a massive difference in the technology, but there's not that big a difference in the technology in the local and regional scene for the most part. It's there, and obviously people with money have an advantage, but you can almost buy a ready-made package there in an e-bike, I think, anyway.
And just to harp in on that quickly, I think the beauty of especially like racing a 450, you don't need to make them things any faster, man.
100%. Yep.
I know for a fact, like I try and make my bike rideable.
Yep.
Because it is so brutal how fast that thing is. So from a budget perspective, I don't think guys racing 450s are going to have that. I think Zane hit the nail on the head. It's your super minis and your the guys that are spending 20 grand on building a 65 versus the dad that scraped his pennies together to buy a secondhand YZ65 for his kid to go and race. That's the real gap.
So when you look at the technology in that sense, so look at the Stark Varg, it's a senior size bike. There's nothing to say that technology, even the motor that's on that, can't be put into a smaller motorcycle. The saving will probably be in the battery in terms of weight. And so you could effectively get, a 60, 50 horsepower, 85 size bike with an electric bike. So that's really going to open the door to limitations and restrictions that they're going to have to look at when that happens.
KTM already do it.
Yeah?
Yeah, so KTM, as of this year, no longer do a 50 SX Mini. Yep, so they've made that obsolete. So they now they do the 50 SX, like the senior one.
Yep.
But they've essentially stepped towards having that as their platform now. As the 50 SX Mini is now an electric version. They have 3 versions of what was the 50 SX.
How does that compare then to the petrol-powered bike?
I haven't ridden one, man. Sorry. I don't know. Yeah. I actually don't know.
That'd be interesting.
But it has started.
Yeah,
what you said has already started. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a new frontier.
And if it's all about people gaining an advantage, luckily motocross is sort of a bit stuck in their ways, which is great. You look at other sports and there's people changing genders to compete in women's sports. So
I'm going to edit that out, Tuffy.
It's true.
I'm kidding.
So, you made a great point. You could have Ferris it wouldn't matter what he was on. he could lap me on a postie bike. It doesn't matter. But if there's two me's out on the track, it'll be the one who probably didn't have the Palmer and 6 pots the night before that might win.
Yeah.
So, and I don't even care. I just like riding dirt bikes. These things are exciting. I'm embracing it. I never thought I'd say that, but after I've ridden one, I'm like, man, this thing is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess, we've kind of broken it down into a few different aspects, I think. So for me, I think you've all made some valid points in terms of they're fun to ride, they're awesome technology, they're the future. I think at the top of the game, the very best riders at the highest levels, I think it's no different to having, performance enhanced machines through technology, whether it's petrol, whether it's e-bikes or whatever else they can introduce, better suspension, better exhaust systems, better ECUs. It's just another branch of that. But I still worry how the impact is going to be of e-bikes on the local scene, especially as they start becoming more common, especially while the cost is high. I mean, there's so many other things that we sort of haven't even spoken about, like the industry as a whole, the mechanical industry. I think that's further on down the track because thankfully they aren't that common, but that's an impact that is going to eventually we're going to see across the industry.
That's a great point. Pro circuit pipes, don't need them. Unifilter air filters, don't need them. Oil, don't need that.
Yeah.
So just on that, Tuffy, the servicing interval for a Stark, the first service is done at 5 hours. The Stark actually only holds 90 mil of oil. And after that, they have 40-hour service intervals.
Wow.
So you look at dealerships that are selling oil, selling parts, there are some background repercussions of this product too.
Yeah.
Spare parts is an integral part of any dealership business. There's potentially can have repercussions on that. You got a 40-hour service interval, you got 90 mil of oil. You're not running down to the dealership to buy oil.
Hey, what's a battery life? Like my ride stint was quite short, so because I'm just trying to think of the crossover to off-road riding, like enduro sprints, cross country. Are they capable?
They're working on it. Yeah. Okay. So it just depends on the setting that you ride it in. That's the thing. Yeah. So, you could get a weekend warrior that can put it on, a certain horsepower setting, and we've actually had guys from work that have ridden them in the bush,
right?
And they've done 3-4 hours on them, and made it work. Riding them relatively tentatively, but then we've had some of our sponsored riders that have been out testing them, and they've done 20 minutes at Cruisix on a faster setting, and they've warped out. They've gone from 100% down to like 65 in a singular moto. So it all just depends on how you ride it. Yep. And I know the guys at Stark are really working. The good thing about that, what they can do, it's essentially like when your iPhone has an upgrade. So what they can do, they essentially can upgrade the software from Spain and download it to the Starks worldwide. So instead of a physical change to a component, they can literally, just like an iPhone upgrade, they can do that and make the product better. So, it's...
Here's your performance, your ECU performance upgrade. Just plug it in and
just download
Bluetooth it off your phone.
Download it. Yeah. So, they're good and bad points, Spare parts, probably not great, but things like that, they can... I know they've had multiple upgrades in between. When I rode the first time I rode one was July last year. And since then, I think they've had a couple of major upgrades before consumers have even had them. So the guys, they're working like the R&D and the development and the testing and the feedback. So I remember Mike Sleater telling me they have a group chat with everyone at Stark, and globally, the network of people that work on the product in Stark is 100 people. You start doing the numbers, man, that's not a lot of people.
No.
Right? There's 300, 400 people who work at Yamaha in Australia.
Yeah, yep.
Before you go overseas. So they're a very tight-knit, intimate group that are really, really communicating and working and doing a lot of stuff on the background to make this thing as good as they can be, as quick as they can be. So... yeah, don't count it out just yet. Yeah.
And just finally, I've got a question for you, Dino, having and Tuffy as well, because you've ridden the Stark as well. So I've obviously based my argument on the big assumption that they're better bikes overall. So if you put the same rider with the same experience and say they've put the hours on the Stark, to actually acclimatise themselves to be able to ride it, do you think a rider would be faster on the Stark versus the petrol-powered bike when you factor in the lack of engine braking, the lack of engine inertia, which makes the thing turn better? Like, you can't dispute that it's going to turn better, it's going to turn easier. It's like a mountain bike in that sense.
It's hard to say, man. I actually did do some back-to-back riding at Nunawading, and I went out in the Stark first and threw down some heaters, and then went out on the 450 back-to-backs, like just literally got off one and onto the other.
Yeah.
We didn't run it on the clock. I felt like I could throw the 450 round easier because I'm so used to using that engine inertia to dip the front over the jump or put it where I want it, because I could depend on its characteristics. Where the Stark, without the engine inertia, without those characteristics, I don't know on the clock whether I was faster on one or the other. I definitely know that I felt obviously more at home.
Yeah.
On the 450, I think I bought my first 450 in 2010. So, this is my 14th year of riding one. As they get better and better and better, that will be the true tell.
Yep.
Yeah, it's such a hard question to answer. It really is, because as Dean just said, he's so familiar with what he's got. It's just part of, it's what, it's automatic. It's what you do. And the Stark it's unique.
And that's why my question was pretty speculative, because you've got to base it on the fact if you've done the same hours on an electric bike that you've done on a petrol-powered bike, which is never going to, you're never going to catch up.
Yeah. No, you're right. So if you take that out of the equation, I don't know. It's impossible to say. I just went on pure fun factor, and because the thing was so new and so surprising, I was letting out. Woo! It was that much fun. So, I can't answer that question. That's impossible to answer. But, hey, Sleater, if you're listening, mate, give me a call. Text, tune in, Mental for Moto. You get my number. Come around, mate. I'm happy to run that test. Let's make it happen.
All right. And I guess I haven't asked the most important question of all. Is there one that's more fun?
I'll harp in on that. So, for me, the part of the experience that I really love with riding the bike, it's using the gear. For me, again, there's no better feeling for me than being right in the right part of the power stroke. You're in the right gear, a 450, you're carrying that taller gear, you're right in the meaty part of the power, and you get it right. I enjoy that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And there's components to riding the bike. You got to remember the Stark doesn't have gears or clutch or anything like that, and there's such a big component of riding that is using the gears and being in the right part of the gears. Even on a two-stroke, it's even more important. 450, you can be a little lazy, you can lug the thing around. But I personally really get a kick out of that is, carrying that taller gear, being in the right part of the power, where, the Stark is essentially you've got all 5 gears in one. The further you twist the thing, it just goes and goes and goes and goes. So that's probably just one of the components that I still feel really drawn to, the enjoyment factor of riding the 4-stroke.
Just to weigh in, I think there's no better feeling than on a 125 or a 252-stroke even, just balls to the wall, swinging off the thing on a sand track down at Rosebud. That is pure motocross. That is that to a heartbeat. Like the thought of me coming out of a turn, going from second to third and not hearing the bike on limiter, like I want to ride one just for the hype, but I'm not too keen on racing one anytime soon.
So sticking a playing card in the back wheel to make the noise isn't going to cut it?
Nah. I'm gonna be standing on a can of Coke and putting it in the back wheel and getting it going like I did back in the day. But it's gotta make a bit of noise for me to have some fun on it.
No, you're right. Any pure dirt bike enthusiast can appreciate the sound of a bike that is in the meat of the power and the rider's just hauling ass and just clicking gears, making it happen, coming out of a turn. Like, that's the art of off-road motorcycling.
Yeah.
And the Stark can't replace that, because it's not that. It's a different thing. That's what I think.
It is, and it's a different thing. To compare the two that's where the lines are getting blurred, because they're as much as they're similar, they're worlds apart.
We've just come back full circle on your
You have.
question.
I was thinking exactly the same. That was my point. To
Well
try and
done.
keep them
Well played.
separate.
You win.
Yep, I engineered that from the beginning. Just no.
You're good.
Well, thanks, guys. That was that was definitely entertaining. Before we get on to the next topic, we'll just take a quick break to hear some words on behalf of our sponsors. Listen to these ads all the way through, and you'll find out how you can win some cool prizes by supporting the sponsors who support Mental for Moto. Death Grip Products. Trav at Death Grip Products was my very first in-studio guest and the first sponsor of the Mental for Moto podcast. As a rider, Trav wanted a glove that was affordable, lightweight, and maximised performance and feel, but couldn't find anything that ticked all of those boxes. And so he decided to design his own glove, and that's how he came up with the Death Grip Reaper motocross and mountain bike gloves. I've been wearing Death Grip Reapers for about 3 or 4 years and absolutely love them. Ever the supporter of the Mental for Moto podcast, Travis set up a discount code just for listeners of the podcast. So to get a whopping 35% discount, either visit deathgrip.store or the Mental for Moto website and enter the discount code MENTAL23, and you'll be able to pick up a pair of Death Grip Reaper gloves for under $23. Wolf Building Compliance and Fire Protection. Having a quality fire extinguisher in your trailer and workshop is one good way to make sure that your valuable dirt bikes don't accidentally go up in flames. Servicing the Greater Melbourne area, Wolf can help you out with all your fire protection needs. Visit wolfbc.net or click on the link below and use the contact form, and the guys at Wolf will be sure to look after you. Graphics by Aqua. If you want a lit kit, Graphics by Aqua have got you covered. Neon colours, metal flaking, holographics. Graphics by Aqua are taking jersey prints, graphics kits, and graphic design to the next level. Best of all, Graphics by Aqua is locally based and exclusively use premium quality local suppliers for their full range of products and services. They even do custom logo designs and work uniforms. To see some of their awesome work, check out the Graphics by Aqua Instagram page and give them a follow while you're there, or simply follow the link below to visit their website. SPMX Suspension and Engine Performance. Steve Powell, the man behind SPMX, is a former pro racer, a former factory mechanic, and the current 40-plus Aussie Pro MX champion. So you can trust that he has the expertise to get your bike dialed in specifically for you. And no, bike mods aren't only for the pros. Speaking from first-hand experience myself as an average rider, I can tell you that the changes that Steve's made to my bike have not only made it handle better, but also resulted in me having far less of those oh shit moments and fatiguing less as well. So whether it's setting up your suspension and chassis to suit your speed and type of riding, remapping your ECU, to getting the best performance out of your motor, SPMX is your one-stop shop. To learn more about all of the great services available at SPMX, simply click on the link below and let Powley get you sorted. Shred Bike Care. The concept behind Shred Bike Care is simple. A clean bike is a fast bike. And with a complete range of products, from bike wash and degreaser to chain lube and surface treatments, Shred can have your bike looking clean and shiny every time you hit the track. To check out the full range on offer at Shred Bike Care, visit their website by clicking on the link below. Iro Helmets. Iro Helmets have won over 125 motorcycling world titles, with world-renowned superstars including Antonio Cairoli, Jeffrey Hurlings, Marvin Muscan, even Jason Anderson. From the world stage right down to the grassroots motocross scene, Iro is the title sponsor of the 2024 Gippsland Motocross Championships and even supports up-and-coming local legends such as Memphis Trevina and Zane Mackintosh. As one of the lightest and safest helmets on the market, when it comes to protecting my most important asset, I choose Iro as well, and I've been wearing Iro helmets for nearly 5 years now. To check out the range of Iro helmets, head into your local dealer today or click the link below to visit the website. Works Racing Goggles. Roll-off systems are expensive, right? Wrong. For under $100, you can get yourself a quality set of Works Racing goggles complete with the Works Racing roll-off system and never have to worry about having clear vision again. And unlike many other roll-off systems on the market, the unique design of the Works Racing roll-off system maintains a wide field of vision while minimising the width of the outer frame, so they'll fit nearly all senior and junior helmets. See clearer in 2024 with Works Racing goggles, now also available via the Mental for Moto website. Bolt Everywhere Premium Racewear. Growing up in the 90s moto scene, I love nothing more than a brightly coloured gear set. and they don't get much better than the 2024 range from Bolt Everywhere. My personal favourite colourways are the Blast 4.0 Vibrant Apparel and the Blast 4.0 Pink Apparel. Fully Australian owned, Bolt can even personalise your gear with in-house jersey and sponsor printing. To set yourself up with a premium quality Bolt gear set for the 2024 season, head over to the Bolt Everywhere Insta page and DM Tom to place your order now. 5 gloves. The new 5 MXF race motocross gloves have just hit the market, and having had the opportunity to test these out at the local track, I can tell you that they are quite unlike any other glove I've worn. As the highest end handwear in the 5 range, the quality, function and comfortability of the MXF race is obvious the moment you slip them on. Whether you prefer motocross, bush or even road riding, 5 have a glove to suit every motorcycling discipline and every budget. Simply click on the link below to find the 5 glove that is right for you. Now, to say thanks to our amazing partners and you listeners for supporting the sponsors who support Mental for Moto, here is how you can win some prizes. All you need to do to enter is post an Instagram story of you using a product or service from one of our partners and make sure you tag Mental for Moto so we see it. I'll be giving away a new prize every month to the most creative post. Now, let's get back to this episode. All right, we're back into it. So, the next topic, my next hot take, should ProMX award points down to 40th place? I'm going to say yes. For the life of me, can somebody tell me why it hasn't happened already? If we look at other sports, national rankings often go into the hundreds and sometimes even thousands. But in moto, if you finish 21st in every round of the championship, you didn't even show up in the championship results table at the end of the year. It's like you weren't even there. Now, to illustrate how absurd this is, a rider that turns up at one race and finishes 20th beats a rider that finishes 21st in all 8 rounds of the ProMX championship. Secondly, I think that awarding points all the way down to 40th and thereby giving more riders an official place in the championship at the end of the season not only recognises the efforts of those riders, it elevates the achievements of those that manage to finish in the top 10 or top 3 or win. What are your thoughts? We'll start with you, Dean.
I've actually never even thought of that. But you know what? I could imagine, let's say you go, I'm going to go race the Nationals and, I'm going to drive up to QMP or I'm going to go to Wanneroo or something and, you invest 2 weeks off of work and X amount of money, to go there and ride your heart out. To say you'd finish 23rd, 24th and not get any points, you may as, on paper, you may as well not have even been there.
There's no record of you being there.
There's no record of you being there, That's actually a pretty interesting subject, man, because you think, all right, so let's say there's an element of people that go, similar to what you said with the competitive edge with the Stark, would it deter people from wanting to go if they didn't feel competitive? If you consistently felt, oh man, we want to do every round of the Nationals and I'm barely qualifying or I'm 31st or I'm 35th, and how sustainable is that?
Yep.
How long are you going to want to do that for? You know what I mean? To go, I've done every round of the Nationals, 2 of them I didn't qualify and every other one I was 35th. On paper, you got just a line of donuts next to your name.
Yeah.
How sustainable is that? Well, you think, it's no one in their right mind, really, unless they've cashed up to the hills and, they're just doing it for the love. There's not that many people of them in our sport, unfortunately. Sustainability, man. Yeah, I think it'd definitely be a lot more enticing for people to want to do it because they've got something to show for their efforts. Yeah.
And
I think so, yeah.
If you come in, say you've raced the 2023 year and you come into the 24 year and you're trying to sell your upcoming year's program to your sponsors and they say, how do you go last year? How'd you go last year in the championship? I mean, if you didn't get a point, like what do you tell them?
Doesn't look good on a resume.
No, but I mean, if you finish 22nd in a championship, at the end of the year, there might have been 50 different riders. All of a sudden you've actually got something to sell to someone that might not be interested in the sport beforehand, but it's an avenue to get more support. And really, is there a downside?
No, and I think with the exception of that, would you award more points for first?
Yeah, you'd have to structure the points.
You'd have to.
You'd have to structure it differently. But
so there's been certain races. Let's look at the SMX playoffs for argument's sake. So they tried something new the year just gone. And towards the tail end, some of the rounds actually had double or triple points awarded. And mathematically, that actually made for better racing in the long run.
I agree, yep.
Yeah, I think you're onto something, Pete.
Tuffy.
Mate, I'm all for it. And on top of that, I think you should run your championship number from the year before, so you can fly that flag for the next season. It's your resume every time you head out on the track. I think it makes sense. And what really rammed that home for me, I think I talked about it last time I was on with you. Took my wife to a motocross championship round, and she was like, "So who are the riders, and why is that guy with the big number? He's winning," and just none of it made sense to her.
Yep.
I think you got to. I think you have to do it. I do. I know riders will blow chunks over that because they identify themselves with specific numbers. It's a career number. They like to market off it.
It's branding.
Yeah, it's their branding. I get that. But, mate, yeah, championship points for everyone. You got something to brag about. Put it on your bike. Run it for the next season. That's your resume. Everyone knows who's who in the zoo. That's what I think.
Zano, you're in the hot seat because this is actually you, mate. So,
yeah. As someone who, I finished 24th twice last year and have nothing to pay for it. As Dean said, I went to Coolum, went all the way there, went 27-24 in the motos, finished 5 seconds off 20th in the second moto after 25 minutes at Coolum, and it meant nothing. I may as well,
Heartbreak.
like, you know what I mean? And I was still pumped, you know what I mean? Like, it was my PB for the year. I mean, it tied with mud race at Albury, so, you know, as much as it counts, it was good to get it straight up, but like getting 0 points, you're like, fucking hell. Like, honestly, you just, it hurts.
Especially after a moto at Cool.
Yeah, dude, it hurts. Like, you know what I mean? And like, Dad, the last 3 laps, Dad literally had points written on the pit board. Like, you know what I mean? I was digging deep for that 1 point because at the end of the year, I get put in whatever, you know what I mean? Because people will go, oh, so where'd you end up in the championship? Or, well, technically...
when you start with technically, it's never good.
Yeah, well, so, you know, how do you rank? Well, I mean, I beat all these guys, but at one race he got 1 point, but I beat him at every other race for the whole year. So technically he's better than me, but he's not. But I mean, you're like, so it's, you know what I mean? It is. I agree 100% they should get points to 40th.
Yeah.
Because the guys that are out there that even don't qualify some rounds, we're going for it. We need something. I mean, we're not getting paid. ProMX, just heads up, you know, like, give us something. Yeah. Jesus.
I think I might as well throw this year's media credential in the bin already.
Yeah, no, but yeah, just 1 point would do.
Yeah. So if you look at it adversely, what genius came up with the idea of going, all right, we're going to have a race with 40 riders, but we're only going to give points to the top 20?
Because there was only 20 riders back then, and no one's thought about it since. It's like I said before, we're mildly reactionary to you know, evolution of the sport. I reckon that's probably what happened.
Yeah. Well, to quote Steve Mathis, he always says, "Never change, AMA, never change." And I think that's a worldwide phenomenon when it comes to motocross.
Yeah, it's probably a bit of a backhanded compliment in the same space. Yeah, really.
Going back to Supercross, this is the first year where 22nd place in a main event doesn't get a point. They changed it. So I know a lot of people are saying, well, if you know, are the last place qualifier in the LCQ and you're sitting last, you know, you're risking your life. Yeah. The 20 minutes around a rutted out Supercross track for what? You know, you don't get that 1 point, you know what I mean? So
I think that's going to change because there's been a lot of backlash over that this year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then why shouldn't it correlate to motocross? I think, as you were saying, because the motocross industry isn't very proactive. They just react to people making noise.
I wouldn't even say that they're not proactive. I would say that they're super resistant to change.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. You've been around, Tuffy. Yep.
Yeah, maybe too long. I mean, I love the sport. I do. But motocross is still my passion, my main passion. But, yeah, I mean, there's certain things that we can do as moto people, I think, to make it better. I mean, so look at the Fink Desert Race. For the last, I don't know, decade, there's been 600 riders enter. You know exactly where you finished.
Yep.
Even if you've done it once in your life and you finished 520th, you go, I finished 520th.
Yep.
You can hang your hat. Yeah, I beat 80 other guys. That's your bragging rights. So I feel sorry for the guys that aren't getting championship points, that are out there literally trying to bang bars with the best of the best that we've got. And our standard's awesome. You're trying to step up and it's like you're ignored.
And like I said, I think you can build off that. You know, if you can come 30th in a championship, 25th, 20th. You can build off that as opposed to just, you were never here. If you didn't come in the top 20, you were never here. Oh, I think it's pretty unanimous. ProMX,
Let's make it happen.
MA,
Yep.
award points down to 40th.
Thanks in advance.
That one I like the 1 to 10. I like that
Yeah,
to
single
run a
digit.
single digit, you got to be someone.
Especially the state titles.
Say that again, Zane. Say it into the microphone because it's a good point.
It is.
I reckon with the numbers, single digits the only time you should be allowed to championship. You know what I mean? Like, because in Vic we ran it different to a lot of the other states. Is the fast guys ran low numbers, like with the A, B, C grading. But like some of the Queensland and New South Wales guys, their 3-digit numbers are their identity. But if you can run a single digit number, it has to be legit. It has to be a national number. It has to be a championship number. That I get, but I know I wouldn't be running 38th if I got 38th at nationals. I'd leave that. But yeah, no, a single digit, I agree with 110%.
I would agree with that. Just from the point of a branding perspective, I think the branding goes a long way, especially now when you've got social media. Like you see a lot of riders, Zane, you've got your number next to your name. Do you,
I
Dean?
definitely feel like my race number is tied to my identity, man. I've had my number 85 since 2012. So 12 years I've ran this number.
Oh, some good feedback anyway. Mm-hmm. All right, can we move on now, Zane? Are we allowed to move on?
Yeah, we can. We'll
No worries.
move on
All right.
now.
Should riders and or officials be fitted with voice comms or a bar-mounted light system? Personally, I think that while you can make an argument for voice comms in motocross and supercross, it definitely introduces some additional risks and all kinds of complexities in relation to who could potentially be allowed to communicate with the riders, whether it's just officials or teams or mechanics. A bar-mounted light system, however, operated by race control, on the other hand, would eliminate a lot of those complexities and shouldn't distract the riders too much, certainly not as much as voice comms potentially could. And I think it could definitely have benefits both in terms of safety and racing. So in time, I think voice comms would be good, but in the short term, I think a bar-mounted light system could have a lot of positives. Green means go, white for the medical flag, yellow for caution, red as a red flag, and blue to tell Vince Friese to get the fuck out of Jet Lawrence's way.
And everyone else.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I do know that those kind of components have actually infiltrated their way into some people's coaching programs. So I know Ben Townley in New Zealand actually does that with a lot of his students.
Yep.
They have a comms unit and he will be speaking to them live, rather than have them go, okay, I need you to do, I need you to brake here, I need you to roll here, I need you to power here. Watch them do it, watch them make it the mistake 5 times. And he literally, with his coaching, does that and talks to them live. So I think from a coaching perspective, it's highly beneficial to say it live. Racing, it's hard because, okay, it makes pit boards obsolete. There's no need for that. And then again, the level of communication will potentially differ from competitors too. So the information that someone gets in comparison to someone getting no information or whatever, does it become an advantage? I think so. There would have to be some sort of commission into a playing ground that everyone had the same stuff and only that.
Yep.
And I think it would be fair in terms of like incidents and stuff. We've seen a really good example the week before. I can't remember where it was in Texas there, where it was either one of the Star riders or one of the Kawasaki riders. I think it was, I want to say Kitchen, didn't actually notice that there was a yellow flag.
Jordan Smith,
sorry. It was Jordan Smith. He was following Levi Kitchen. Yep, sorry, my brain was a bit behind there. And that's a perfect example. He was so tuned in to catching the leader, he didn't realise that Kitchen had slowed down for the yellow flag. And he just launched himself into this rhythm section and then ended up having a huge crash. The race didn't stop. The race went on and he blew his whole race because he actually didn't notice the flags. And he, obviously Kitchen had noticed the flags in front of him. So getting back to your suggestion with the bar pad, if they had all been, say, notified equally, things like that wouldn't happen. I'm sure Jordan Smith was probably pretty disappointed in himself for not noticing that. Definitely worked in Levi Kitchen's favour.
Yep.
I'd love to see this trialled. My first thought, I'm pretty immature, but I thought, like on the V8 supercars where they patch into what's going on between the driver and the engineer. Can you imagine some of the content we would get? It'd be
On
epic.
fire, Ricky Bobby.
Like you just couldn't air it. It'd be awesome. But I don't know. I think perhaps that, say, Pro MX issues the light system or whatever. I don't know how well that would work. I think the only time I've ever looked at, say, my bar pad in a race is when I've full 90-90 and it's like, oh, I'm probably going to die.
Yep.
I don't know if I'd notice it. But I'd love to see it trialled. Don't know who's going to pay for it, where it's going to come from, but sick idea.
Yeah, I agree with the bar mount, as in I try not to. I get yelled at by coaches when I can see my bar mount. But going back to the Ben Townley thing, I know Ford Dale, he uses a similar system. And from riders up there, they reckon it's amazing. So I think it wouldn't take long for us riders to get used to it. And I think the best way to do it is you had one head official that had a button that said, I can talk to just this rider, I can talk to everyone, and it's not to the mechanics, because I feel like that's where lines start to get blurred. But I agree with Dean with the point is, I've been racing and, blue flags have been out, and I, look back and don't see anyone. I've gotten a full lap later, see another blue flag, and I'm thinking, oh, yeah, whatever. Next turn, I get T-boned by Brodie Connolly because I was coming from one of the lines, and he, he's obviously racing for the lead, like no fault, racing incidents. But, I didn't actually know when they're pulling up on me.
Yep.
So if I have someone in head button going, yep, Connolly's, he's on your ass, I just hold my line. You don't cut outside to inside, which was the main line, which was everyone was doing, or however it works. Or, I think they have a similar system in F1, a bit of a crash on turn 7. All the drivers now know there's a crash on turn 7. So,
And if you've got one person in an official capacity that's responsible for all of that communication, it'd be pretty easy to track as well, because he obviously knows that if Brodie Connolly's coming through the field, at the moment he's lapping 25th, then he's going to be lapping 24th. So you've got the rider list in front of you of who's in that position with the live timing, assuming that and live timing works. That's a different kettle of fish, but
I think manufacturers in the likes of helmet manufacturers are already on that track too. So Fox Racing actually brought out an all-new V3 helmet this year.
Yep.
V3 and V3 RS, and it actually has the cavities for comms device in them. So they have a cavity within the ear space that has an allowance for that, and an actual bit near the mouth where they can actually fit comms units into the helmet, all OEM. You don't have to modify the helmet, nothing. You buy your new Fox helmet, you can run headgear in it. With
my previous pastime, which is scuba diving and cave diving and wreck diving, when you're diving rebreathers, you actually use a thing called a HUD, which is it's called a heads-up display, and it's actually a series of lights that reflect inside your goggles, and it works the same way. So if your breathing mix is either too rich, so too oxygen rich, or too lean, so not enough oxygen for the depth that you're diving, it'll actually tell you of what you've got in your loop. So it's a bit of an early warning system. So apart from a bar-mounted light system, it's potentially something that you could put inside your goggles. Obviously, mud racing, that's going to be a little bit of a challenge when riders are pulling their goggles off. But, there's all kinds of different ways as well that might be a little bit out of the box, but could definitely be explored with the same sort of technology as well.
Mate, I've really thought about this more since I've listened to you guys. I think it should happen sooner rather than later from a safety aspect. And if it's we're going to invest in it once pretty much as a championship. The championship owns the technology, and it's distributed at every round. I think it's really smart. I mean, I was around before transponders were a thing, believe it or not. And that, for the most part, has changed the sport for the better. But this, from a safety perspective, I think, really, really, why not now?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think as a rider, I think, playing around with how we do it via, if it's comms, if it's, flashing lights here, there, everywhere, I think there definitely needs to be moves made to make it a little bit better, or there's definitely room for improvement considering other motorsports have it. Why don't we?
Yep. And really, it is just an extension of we see in Supercross at the moment, the green lights on the leader. It's just a more complicated extension of that, I guess.
And believe it or not, I didn't like that when I first seen that, the lights. I thought they looked stupid on the bike.
When
right?
Phil Nicoletti actually started leading a race.
And you know what though? So I went to San Diego Supercross this year.
Yep.
And it was a mudder.
Yep.
Right? And the only way I could tell who was in the lead
was
the
green
guy
lights.
that had the light. So and you know what? For a fan experience, so it's like, okay, you're watching it on television, you know who's winning because they're telling you.
Yep.
You've got live timing. You sit in the stands and watch it. And San Diego was pretty muddy. You know, there was people all over the joint. That works, man. That was good. You know, and you could see who was leading. They had the yellow. And I think again for people that are, you know, relatively new to the industry and I think that's what that's aimed at, is for people, because it's like anything. Once it all goes, you know, for people who aren't diehard fans that know who's winning, or you know, for people to go, and if you're at a race and you have no idea who's winning, you're going to lose interest pretty quick.
Yep.
Again, with trying to grow the sport, trying to get new people, trying to draw, you know, new people to fill the stadiums and that. I thought that was stupid when I first seen it. I thought, man, it looks stupid on the bikes. It's this bright light. It's a distraction. It wasn't until I went to an AMA Supercross I thought, that's actually wicked, man.
Yeah.
That's
good idea.
Yep. Yeah. And because it was a mudder, it was even better.
Yep.
Because it was all over the joint. You know, it wasn't like a clear race. You know, there was Eli Tomac was getting lapped and making passes with the leaders. You know what I mean? It was such a weird race, but yeah, that was cool, that light system.
Working in risk management for the last sort of 14 years, I've always, in other industries outside of motocross, the approach is always, if you can manage the risk, like you should, there's really no excuse. And so things like we've discussed today, if you have a rider that's down on a down ramp behind a jump, like why would you wait or hope that other riders are going to see them there or realise that they're there, or anticipate that the flaggy, who's effectively an untrained volunteer in most circumstances, is going to act quickly and decisively and in the right way, when you can have like race control, actually, you know, someone that's trained and goes from event to event and has all the information at hand and oversight of the track, be able to provide that sort of safety apparatus, I guess, to the sport, to the riders.
And that'll add longevity to the sport too.
Yep.
You know, whenever there's a really unfortunate instance, be it a death or a really, you know, compounding injury to someone, it has ramifications in the background for the sport.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? If we can actively try and make it safer, then that would no doubt give the sport some boosted longevity.
Yep.
I feel anyway.
And hopefully some of the riders as well.
Oh, mainly for the riders, obviously. You know, no one likes getting hurt.
Yeah, like
I'm sick of it. I know that.
like Michael Essie's crash over that single where no
Hangtown.
flag on. Yeah.
So,
No, Redbud.
Redbud,
Redbud 09.
yeah.
And everyone ran over him.
He got ran over 10 times. All it would have taken was a rider like Alessi down in the middle over the single. No one's going over it. You know what I mean? Everyone. It doesn't take much. Like, and as a rider who races currently, like those flags don't do much. Like as much as some of the time they're placed out the way. So if you're on the main lines far left off a tabe, I'm not looking at my far inside to see, has he decided to put a flag out in the last, 10 seconds? I glance at him maybe coming out the turn, no flag, sweet, come over the jump, there's a bike. So it's kind of the communication would definitely help improve so much.
Yeah, and even that in itself, like I know as riders you're pretty aware of everything that's happening, but you shouldn't have to be distracted. Like it's a dangerous enough sport. You're riding the track and there is obstacles and changes in the track, whether it's mud, whether it's a rock in a rut, or just the track changing. Like that little second, that split second that you have to look up to see if the flaggy's got the flag out or not, or is just turning around in the flag tower, could be enough for you to have a big crash and an injury. So if there's a better way of doing it, like, let's do it.
But let's at least get the conversation started.
100%.
That's the forefront, is let's get the conversation started
Try some
rather
stuff.
than be reactive and wait for something bad to happen. We could be pioneers of change, man. Yeah.
Love it. All right, so that feeds really well into our last talking point for the evening. and it's another safety-related sort of topic, and it's one that I saw happen, and I thought, I'm just going to chuck this on the list. Could or should Austin Forkner's injuries on the weekend have been avoided? I'm sure you guys all watched his Instagram updates. He's made a few now, and he's going through a pretty rough time. So at both amateur level and professional level of racing, the organisers obviously have a responsibility to eliminate and reduce unnecessary risks. That pretty much goes with any occupation. At motocross events, we see padding around trees, star pickets getting removed, hay bales and tyres to prevent riders going onto opposing lanes, watering to prevent dust, all kinds of stuff, all with the aim of making racing safer. So in Supercross, where riders are travelling at high speeds and jumping metres high on motorcycles into the air, is it considered okay to have a concrete surface immediately next to a rhythm lane, especially when it's something that can be so easily addressed? The year before last, Cooper Webb had a very similar accident to Austin Forkner when he went OTB over the Dragon's Back. And now we see another championship contender in Forkner narrowly avoiding spending the rest of his life in a wheelchair. Like, pretty serious crash. Now, I fully accept that motocross and supercross are dangerous sports, but if there's a risk that can be easily managed and these riders can be protected from career-ending injuries, why is that something that's being ignored? So what's the solution? So in martial arts, we use interlocking 40mm thick mats that are 1 metre square. They cost about $20 each, and that's if you buy them in small volume. So let's assume the rhythm lane is 50 metres long and we run a lane 3 mats wide down the side of the rhythm lane. Along 2 rhythm lanes, that's 300 mats at a cost of about $6,000 in total. So it would take about 20 minutes to lay them down. I know, because we've laid them down across many, many dojos. They're hard wearing. You can drive the UTVs on them with no issue. You can leave the areas at the ends of the track free for earth moving because, you know, there's usually obstacles there that aren't rhythm lanes. And would they be effective? Well, I can say, you know, it's obvious in the way I talk sometimes, but I've been slammed on the mats time and time again over the years, many, many times. And I think the difference between landing on mats like that as opposed to concrete could have been the difference for Forkner between walking away a bit banged up or suffering a severe spinal injury that would have impacted him for the rest of his life. So call me a pussy, but yes, I think having a concrete floor next to a rhythm lane is definitely a hazard that they could and potentially should do something about moving forward. We'll start with you, Zano.
Could Austin Forkner's injuries been prevented? Yes. He doesn't race, but as we all do, we race. We know injuries are there. Dude, that's the only way. That man crashes. He could have crashed on a flat track. That man he's bad for it. But
Okay, pretend it's not Austin Forkner.
No, as in to say, like, he's like, sorry, I'll reword this. The way that man was crashing in that rhythm lane, he wasn't walking away from that looking pretty good. Him landing on the concrete, though, was the difference between him walking away, you know, a few broken ribs and maybe a broken scapula, to him sitting the rest of his life in a wheelchair. So I 100% agree there should be mats along the side of the track, considering how dangerous this sport is already. Why are we leaving it more dangerous for no apparent reason? Like, it is, we're already on the edge, you know, riders always get injured throughout the series without, you know, landing on concrete. So I don't think there's any necessary reason to leave extra risks there.
My immediate reaction when you suggested that was, I thought, okay, perhaps their reasoning it would be, okay, they need to obviously have ambulance access, you know, the little buggy access. But again, if like you think that there's no reason why they can't drive over that, then okay, why aren't they looking at that? You know, I get they've got to be able to have, there's certain safety protocols that and measures that have to be met to run these events. They need certain amount of access. They need, you know, all those things, all that criteria has to be met. But if it doesn't stop them from doing that, then I'd love to understand their argument as to why they're not entertaining that, for sure.
Yeah, mate, I think you summed it up perfectly. I think it should be done. And when you said, what could we do? And you gave me the answer straight away. I'm like, why isn't this happening? Yeah. And then I thought back, do you remember when Dan Reardon had a crash like that over in the States when he was riding for Geico Honda? I think he went over a berm and he landed on the concrete. This is going back a bit.
Yeah, 2008, I think. Yeah, 2008.
But
yeah.
so
Zane wasn't born.
it's not a new thing, right, for riders to have these accidents and land on flat conk. It's bad. Do something about it. You've given them a cheap and effective solution. I know that AMA is probably not listening to us right now, but
Not yet.
Yeah,
In Australia.
Not yet.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
100%, mate.
Yep. This isn't aimed at the AMA, but because they're definitely not going to be listening. But yeah, is it something we can do in Australia?
100%. Why? Yeah. Why isn't it happening? Great idea.
Yeah.
Great solution. I'm all for it.
Just one thing that I've thought of live, as you've mentioned that, is we've seen it time and time again. And let's say we have some inclement weather and it's a little bit wet. How many times have you seen a guy come off the track and tuck the front on that slick, whether it's the boards they lay down or the concrete, and it is like glass.
Yep.
You know, I've seen that.
Wet concrete with a bit of clay.
Goodbye. You know what I mean? Would those mats have a little bit more grip?
I'd assume so. And even 2016, Kenny, when he goes for that quad, jumps off the track and goes to stop, and you watch him lose both wheels into the wall and pretty much end his season.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I think it might have been 15 even. But yeah, things like that where, you know what I mean? Because once you leave the track and you're on that, you know, ply boards or the concrete, you're not braking, you're not turning, you know what I mean? You're just going into wall or...
You're a passenger.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have fixed a lot of shit tonight. This is good.
Yeah. to answer your question, Dino, they definitely have more. They would have more grip under motorcycle tyres.
Yep.
Under power, they'd get torn up. Maybe not the first time, but obviously you couldn't be riding on them all the time. Otherwise, under power, you know, if they're just riding up into the venue, it's not going to be a problem. But they'd eventually get torn up. But at $20 a pop, mate, it's
and they could
it's
probably
pretty
make
cheap
some
insurance.
sort of military compound. You know, like there would be some sort of higher density fabric that they could use, surely, than the, you know, just the ones you use at the jiu-jitsu dojo, you know.
Oh, they're pretty tough. I mean, that's what they're for. So, anyway, all right. Maybe we have solved some of the world's problems tonight.
I reckon we've had a good look at it, yeah.
Oh, well. Anyway, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks, guys, for coming in studio. That brings us almost to the end of show 24. I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsors of the show, Graphics by Aqua, SPMX Suspension and Engine Performance, Death Grip Gloves, Works Racing, Iro, 5 Gloves, Shred Bike Care, Wolf Building Compliance, and Bolt Everywhere Premium Racewear. We'd definitely love to hear some of the listeners' thoughts. So if you see this post advertising this podcast on Instagram or Facebook, please let us know what your thoughts are on some of the topics. And also, if you've got any ideas for some good topics to discuss for the next one, our next episode of Going Off Track, please feel free to make some suggestions and go from there.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah. Yep. Like and subscribe. If we use your suggestions, there might be a little prize in it for you. So just to sweeten the deal. All right. Thanks again for listening. And thanks to Zane Mackintosh, Dean Mosig, and Tuffy, Stephen Tuff for coming in studio.
Thanks, boys. I've had a ball.
Thanks, man.
Me too. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Cheers, Pete.
Thank you.